What's up, everyone? Monster Master Godzilla here, and I'm continuing the Spider-Man-A-Thon. We're now up to Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, this one is the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, taking place after Avengers Endgame. Now, when they were announcing a sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, I didn't have a guess what the title would be. Like Spider-Man Homecoming 2, Spider-Man Continues, the Spectacular Spider-Man, or the Sensational Spider-Man. I wasn't sure. But when they made Spider-Man Far From Home, I was like, not bad, especially since the first one's called Homecoming. So, yeah, this time they kind of, which, the one thing that kind of annoys a lot of folks is that the Spider-Man's finances never existed in comics. And like I said, this was taking place after the events of Avengers Endgame. So, Iron Man already died. Iron Man died a hero after he made a sacrifice of defeating Thanos and his armies. And Peter Parker is now on a family vacation. Was on vacation in Europe, and he ends up inheriting Stark's technology. And people are pressuring him like he wanted to be the next Tony Stark, but Peter was like being reluctant on it. Doesn't know that couldn't handle the responsibilities, which they were trying to, like, he was trying to be very realistic. Like, doesn't know can't even follow the responsibilities. And so Peter ends up grieving over the fact that he missed Tony Stark, which he looked up to him as a hero. So, and then they introduced the character, which is Mysterio, which is this guy next to Spidey right here, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and this is what he looked like with his helmet on, with a fishbowl-like helmet. And Mysterio is is the master of illusion, which in the comic book Quentin Beck, which was in the comic book Quentin Beck is a disgruntled Hollywood special effects artist. And there are a few things that are just like the comic book. Like Spider-Man being in Europe, they took it from a comic book where Spider-Man went to England, and Mysterio, he kept saying that he was pretending to be a hero, which in the comic book they made it seem like both Spider-Man and Mysterio were going to team up. But knowing the comic book, I knew there was going to be a plot twist revealing that Mysterio is the main villain of the film. And they also introduced two other villains, which are elementals, Hydro Man and Molten Man, which those aren't the real Hydro Man or Molten Man. Those are like the nod, but they're still like an awesome nods to it. But they're just illusions. Turns out they were later illusions. And then Peter ends up helping Mysterio when he was teaming up with Mysterio with Nick Fury, which Spider-Man was reluctant on helping Nick Fury because he's on vacation. He says, "Why can't you get somebody else involved to help? Because I'm on vacation. Why don't you get Thor? He's in Asgard. Captain Marvel, she's in space. Doctor Strange, unavailable." So they were referencing what happened during the events of Avengers Endgame. So he was saying, why don't you just get any of those three heroes? But Spider-Man was the only option there was. So he ends up after he met Mysterio, and Mysterio had mentioned that he had a family with a wife and child, which they were in danger and from a different Earth. And he said he was from a different Earth, which is the multiverse. But that was before we even thought about introducing the multiverse in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So then after the hero And then Spider-Man was also giving another costume. Whereas this time wearing a black outfit, which is made by S.H.I.E.L.D. Almost seems like a nod to, which almost seems like a nod to the, which almost seems like a nod to Spider-Man Noir. But then Ned ends up, when he was dating Betty Brant, he ends up pretending that the Spider-Man is a knockoff of Spider-Man in Europe. Called him Night Monkey, which that was very funny. I died when I heard that name, saying that he's called Night Monkey. Which, what kind of name is Night Monkey? And also Mary Jane later found out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So then Peter ends up having a talk with Quentin Beck, expressing how he's not very responsible and he can't take the responsibility. He was open with Mysterio, trying to be this hero. But then right behind his back, it turns out Mysterio reveals his true colors. It turns out he had a bunch of people working beside him, and all this thing about being a hero is all made up. And it turns out one thing I thought was weird and interesting is in the comic book, Mysterio, he did pretend to be a hero, and he had lied about having a family. And he is the master, but the only difference in the comic book is that Mysterio was a disgruntled Hollywood special effects artist. But while in the movie, they changed it to where he used to work with Stark Industries. And he was this disgruntled employee who was robbed of his credit for creating the illusions. Yes, if you have seen Civil War, that scene where Iron Man had a flashback when he was a teenager, which is holographic projection, an illusion, holographic projection showing his past. That's actually Mysterio's work, and he was there for when Stark introduced that. But Stark, because he's so cocky and arrogant at the time before his death, he ends up robbing Mysterio of his credit, and he swore revenge of it. And he swore revenge and wanted to take back what's his. So he ended up becoming Mysterio. So then, later, Spider-Man ends up battling Mysterio after he found out the truth. So he found out he's been lied to. Even Mysterio, of course, he gave Spider-Man a hard time while fighting, especially since he's the master of illusion. And my God, Jake Gyllenhaal, he did a great job playing Mysterio. So he ends up taking over the technology. And Peter vows to take back what he and so Peter decided to fix his mistake and take back and learn from his mistake too. So he ends up going after Mysterio. And then in England, the final battle in England, Spider-Man wound up donning a new costume, which the Far From Home suit, which looks just like the Homecoming suit, but black and red. And the black and red is a nod to the comic book Amazing Fantasy number 15, which Spider-Man was drawn to look black and red. Which you can see in the background right there. That's my canvas of Spider-Man Amazing Fantasy number 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man. And so Spider-Man ends up facing Mysterio. And during the final battle, he ends up learning how to use his spider sense, which he ends up discovering he has spider sense on Infinity War. You know those hairs that came off, that spike up on his arm? That's when he discovered he has spider sense. So he ends up learning how to use his spider sense, and he ended up defeating Mysterio. And then turns out secretly, Mysterio. So then Mysterio is defeated, and he died. and he became, and Peter wound up taking back all of his technology, and the world is saved once again. And turns out, so then after Spidey and friends end up going back to New York, Peter and Gwen ends up swinging together one last time. Then, all of a sudden in the post-credit scenes, there are 2 post-credit scenes in this film. Turns out, twist, J. Jonah Jameson makes an appearance, and it was played by J.K. Simmons. This time he was given a different, he was a different variant of the J. Jonah Jameson from the Sam Raimi trilogy. He still has the mustache like he did when he was in the original Spider-Man trilogy, but this time he's made bald. And he was on TV, and he revealed to the world that that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And it turns out Mysterio wound up exposing his true identity to the world. So, and it turns out Spider-Man's world is all fucked up now. So, and it's all, and you find out what happens next in No Way Home. And then in the second post-credit scene is when Nick Fury, it turns out Nick Fury in the events of Far From Home was actually one of the Skrulls from Captain Marvel in disguise, while the real Nick Fury was in the ship with the Skrulls. So, this one is split whether people love it or hate it, but I mean, I still enjoy it. It's definitely the best. This is the best, it's considered the best Spider-Man 2 since the original Spider-Man 2. And so, would I recommend this movie? Absolutely. It's for fun, entertainment, and it's still better than the Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's definitely one of the stronger films, and it's definitely a must-watch. It's definitely a must-watch for if you're a fan of the MCU and Spider-Man in general. So, and that's all I have to say, folks. And as always, stay awesome, stay amazing, my Spider-Man fans. And I'll catch you later. Next up, we will be doing Spider-Venom Let There Be Carnage. And after Let There Be Carnage, we'll be wrapping it up with Spider-Man No Way Home. And that's all I have to say, folks. And as always, stay awesome, my Monster Masters. And I'll catch you later. And stay tuned for more. Bye.